Welcome to the session on Simple Path to AMS, or known as AWS Managed Services. I'm Chris Garvey. I'm the EVP of Product at SecondWatch. For those of you who don't know SecondWatch, we are a premier AWS partner and a fully audited MSP partner for AWS. I've been at SecondWatch about 2 years. SecondWatch has been in business since 2011 and primarily focuses on mid-sized to large enterprises, really anybody who has a big, complex cloud problem that needs some assistance, either from migration, transformation, modernization. We're there to help. So also I have Stefana Muller. Stefana, you want to, I don't know if your mic's working, but.
Hi.
Oh, it is.
I am working.
Yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stefana Muller, Senior Product Manager at SecondWatch. I work on cloud migration product offerings and our DevOps offerings, and I'll be presenting the how-to at the end of this presentation.
Indeed. So cool. So we'll get started. All right. So things we're going to focus on today. We're going to do a little background on MCS in general, just to kind of manage cloud services, just to level set everybody when we're kind of going to go through the AMS material. Talk about why you might need that as within your organization, and then move into, hey, how might I move into that, and hopefully help you guys try and evaluate whether it's a good fit for you and what the process you might go through. So what is managed cloud, right? It's a very significant portion of our business, but for many companies, they may not have managing their cloud infrastructure as really their core business, right? They may prefer to focus their energy on either I'm doing something for marketing, I'm retail, I'm in manufacturing, and I'm in operations. And so they may look to a provider to help them manage their cloud infrastructure. And I'll talk a little bit about what, all the different dimensions when we think about what cloud infrastructure is. But we often get the question and say, well, cloud self-service, why do I need a managed service provider to help me manage that? Isn't that the whole point of all the tooling and the platform that's out there? And the answer is yes, absolutely. It is getting easier and easier every day. I mean, you guys are all here at re:Invent. There's literally services rolling out every 45 minutes, it feels like, that's going to make AWS simpler and easier to use. But still, there's organizations where they do need assistance. Some research that just came out of 451 recently is 41% of organizations or companies out there indicate that they are lacking that platform expertise to take it on themselves effectively, right? To fully adopt hosting and cloud managed services. And so if you're an organization, you want help to run your cloud infrastructure, or maybe you need some help now while you kind of build that capability, build that muscle internally, or you want a provider that maybe helps you build that, right? You want to learn by kind of watching them operate and as you build up that skill. So this is, when we think about what we do from managed cloud services, it's all of these items, right? We sort of think about it as the different dimensions of managed cloud. Everything from, hey, I need to log, I need to do my monitoring, my eventing, to track and understand what's happening within my infrastructure. I'm going to look at continuity management, which that's a pretty broad term. It could be everything from the underlying physical infrastructure, which fortunately AWS takes care of most of all of that redundancy for us. But if you look at the way that you deploy your applications out, how you're designing for availability and disaster recovery, you need to think through that. Then you get into, clearly, security, huge topic, access management. You want to make sure that your services, the actual humans that are accessing things, have the right level of privilege, they don't have too much privilege, that they're all adhering to particular policy and standards. And then patch management, of course. Boy, don't we all wish patching would just go away? I mean, it's like this chore that it just never goes away, right? One day it will, but for now, for organizations that are operating at significant scale, it continues to be a very, very painful problem, right? Certainly there's services that are coming out that helps that pipeline and makes it easier to do that in a very automated way. AMS does help with that. Stefan will talk a little bit more about that in detail. The other parts about managed cloud services that are really important to mention that I think people overlook is, especially if you're in a larger organization where you have lots of different groups working together and try and coordinate on a shared infrastructure, all of the governance, the control, the change management policies, the configuration of how you're building and deploying all the environment configurations, the code itself, putting tagging in place to understand where those workloads are running and how those services are being used, that's a difficult problem, or can be if you're not setting it up right. So that is something we also consider as part of managed cloud services. The other is, to kind of bring together is around incident management and reporting. If you have incidents, typically goes back to the security side where you need help, have an issue, what should I do about it, how do I go remediate it? It could be something of a severe nature around an intrusion, but it could also be, hey, I've got processes that are running out of compliance, they're not meeting cost control guidelines, things like that. And then lastly, from a reporting standpoint, everybody wants to know what's going on in my environment, so you can either report back to your business stakeholders, your IT stakeholders, potentially your customers, depending on your business model, so that like reporting and transparency of what's going on within the cloud is really important. I think all of these things are important. Some, especially on our side, when customers come to us to ask for help, some of them want all of it, some of them want just a little piece of it. And I think each organization is different also in how much they're willing to really change their own process to match. Some customers you might want it to be completely customized to fit what you have, right, within your business. You might want us to do a racing model that looks exactly what your business was and the way that you operated on-prem in the data center. Others want to use a managed service function as a bit of a forcing function to drive some change that's going to create standardization, right, to create more rigor. And so that's where AMS becomes really interesting, right? What is AMS? It is a fully managed service provided by AWS to really create that foundation and provide a managed service on top of your cloud infrastructure. The nice thing about it is it actually starts to introduce a lot of this rigor that a lot of us are seeking in cloud infrastructure that you could certainly build out on your own. But if you think about what's happening behind the scenes with Amazon today, or with AWS today, they're running an enormous amount of physical infrastructure that's deployed around the world. How are they doing that? Right? They're doing it because they have really solid rigor, best practices, and extreme levels of automation. And so what is happening with AMS is they're taking all those best practices, all those patterns that they have running that infrastructure, and they're effectively exposing it in some way out so that us as customers, all of us as sort of collective customers, can start to take advantage of that and gradually introduce that level of automation and best practice and rigor into our own operations, right? So it's a pretty exciting thing. It's a fast-growing service, but yet there are some things to consider as you start to try and onboard onto it. And so at Second Watch, we've really embraced this service and have been working with customers and Amazon to think about what's the best way to start to onboard customers onto the service so that they're successful and they can get up and running more quickly, which is what Stefana is going to take us through. Stefana.
Thank you, Chris. So guys, first of all, I'm unimpressed that no one danced on the way in. That was an essential thing. David, come on, let's do it. No? No? Okay, that didn't work. All right, so thank you, Chris. What we went through before, no one danced. It was really upsetting. Anyway. So guys, what we went through before was just the basics of managed services and what a managed cloud provider would provide, right? And it's interesting because as a managed service provider ourselves, we often see the need that clients need specific things to help with because they don't want to pour their distinctive competence into operating stuff, right? That was the entire idea of going to cloud in the first place. So with AMS, you can enable that distinctive competence to be applied to the specific areas. And if you look at this slide, it's a great diagram that AMS provided. I didn't actually create it. It's nice. I like it. But if you look at here on the bottom right of the screen, it shows you where they will cover the work for you, where service operations meets infrastructure. This is your IT ops team that is typically running your on-premise infrastructure. Now when you're in the cloud, they pretty much don't know how to run your cloud infrastructure because they don't have the systems, the tools, and it doesn't apply to their existing service levels. So that's where AMS can come in. If you look also here, there's areas that you're going to need to still cover as, hey, by the way, IT doesn't go away, right, when cloud came in. Did IT go away when you moved to cloud? Anyone?
No.
Can everyone just scream no? We're trying to do engagement here. Okay. You know why? We're after lunch, right?
I know,
and
it's the worst spot.
We talked about this earlier. We had yawns going on, and I know I need to be loud in order for you to stay awake. Okay. All right, we'll go back to the slide here. So if you look at the areas that you'd have to cover on your own if you took on the service, it still applies to your application level operations. So if you were an ISV, independent software vendor, and you're running SaaS, a software product in a SaaS environment, you're still managing your application. However, the underlying infrastructure, any alerts, monitoring, whatnot, you don't have to do that work, right? That work should be standard. We're kind of exposing the fact that that stuff, when you move to cloud, still exists. Maybe you shouldn't have to manage it. On the left side of the screen, you have some of the other areas that are important. If you want to get onto this managed service, as you would with any managed service provider, and there are a ton of them out there, you would need to onboard yourself, right? So that is the area that I'm going to go through a little bit more of what you need to consider when you onboard yourself onto a managed service offering like this. And as you can see here, it's application specific, any of the application developer changes, maybe it's the DevOps lifecycle or your CI/CD specifics in order to get the software onto cloud. And then the second thing is your IT team managing just the move of your infrastructure. Either it's on-prem today or maybe it's on AWS and you want to move it to AMS. That transition needs to occur as well. Okay, so when you are going onboarding onto a new service, a managed service, and specifically AMS, you have a few different phases you'll go through. And I'm kind of presenting this, and I'm looking in the first row right here, and you're all gonna laugh about this, but the guys that actually did it for the last client, he's sitting right there, and he's staring at me. He's criticizing me. So if I see Rich and I talk to Rich, by the way, he's taking questions at the end. It's not me, no. So the first phase is discovery and planning. And this is actually the most important phase. And a lot of our clients always say, oh, why do you have to do this? It takes so long. We're spending all this time deciding what's going to move and how it's going to move. Well, if you don't discover and plan, you actually plan to fail, right? That's all you do. So discovery, and I'm going to go through each section a little bit more in depth, but application discovery, operations discovery, understanding your specific security requirements. Everyone has different requirements and different InfoSec teams to deal with. The second area is AMS landing zone. So this is similar to landing zone in AWS, but it is very specific because the integration with the architecture of AMS, right? AMS is a highly secure managed service. So that does require you to shift a bit to fit into their security model. It's important to know that and to build that properly up front, making sure the account setup works with your existing AWS accounts and all that fun stuff. We'll go through some of that. And then last but not least is integration and implementation. So that's actually getting the stuff up there and then making it automated for future, right? So CFTs or CloudFormation templates so that things automate and you don't have to go manually add stuff. That's silly. Anyone still not doing infrastructure as code? Raise your hands, guys. Let's do it. No CFTs? Oh, anyone doing Terraform? That means the rest of you aren't doing infrastructure as code. That scares me. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Or the rest of you are still sleeping because of lunch fatigue. I think that's the other thing. So the sample timeline for onboarding to AMS, this is important to know, is that an onboarding effort to any managed service is going to take effort, but we have a really simple timeline here that we've implemented for a few of our clients, and it's worked quite well. Obviously, a kickoff of the project, doing the majority of the work up front on discovery and planning while we're building that automation work. Because the end result should be you don't have to do anything once you're on AMS. We don't want you writing your own CFTs and your requests for change being manual, right? All of that stuff should be automated. So we start that work up front, and then as you go through this process, then we build the landing zone and so on. So this timeline pretty much works really the same for most clients that we've seen go on board onto AMS. And remember that previous slide of the things that I talked about, the steps that you have to take, those 3 big steps? Well, they're very meaty behind them. So I'm going to go through some of those meaty steps of the things you should consider if you're going to onboard onto a managed service like this. First is the project kickoff and account setup. We think it's funny, account setup. Anyone set up their account for a large enterprise on AWS? I'm sorry, Joey. I'm sorry for you that you had to do that. I can't see back there, the light is blinding me, but I'm sorry for you as well. It is not a simple process, guys. However, why is it not a simple process? Because your business isn't simple, right? Your business, none of our businesses are simple. If they were simple, then we wouldn't look at cloud for help, right? But the idea is we want to make sure we're mapping the account setup to your business needs, make sure that connectivity is set up so that you can connect to this stuff from on-prem. And hey, maybe you have some on-prem services that are going to stay there that need to connect to AMS. That's important as well. Understanding your regions, understanding if you need duplication for disaster recovery, wonderful stuff like that. Organizational divisions. So this was a key for one of our last clients. They had to understand that, oh yeah, marketing and this other finance department should not be in the same environment. Maybe not, right? So those are things that are different in every client that onboards. Environment requirements. Do you need a dev environment, a test environment, a production environment? Do you need an extra test environment? Do you need 4 extra test environments? Those things that you need to know. Operating systems and additional capacity. So this is a key. Because AMS is a newer service, not everything is supported. So we need to make sure that we get you supported before you move on to AMS. Single sign-on. Joey loves single sign-on too, right, Joey? He's nodding. I see Jeff nodding. Everyone back there likes single sign-on, but it's essential in order for your team to gain access to this new cloud environment that's managed by a third party at AWS. And then last but not least, the backup and snapshot requirements. They have standards in AMS, but it may not be the standard that your IT team requires, right? You have some compliance standards to meet. You need to communicate that information up front when we're doing the kickoff. The next thing to consider is in discovery and planning, when we do specific discovery sessions. First, you do application discovery, and that's the basics, right? What apps are you moving over? What are those operating systems, the network requirements? How are you deploying that app on the regular basis? Do you have CI/CD, or is someone manually going to go and push stuff? And if that's going to happen, we want to make sure we can automate it as much as we can. Business functionality, any stakeholders we should warn? Hey, director of finance, your system is moving to the cloud. That type of thing that needs to happen a little bit earlier than the day before you go and push to cloud. Second is security discovery. Now, this is a big part, right? A lot of the clients using a managed service provider do so because they want a highly secure environment. But they also have a lot of security requirements that they're not aware of, because oftentimes the people who make the decision to go to cloud are not the security team. Gasp! Security didn't lead us to cloud, right? Anyone in the security team? One guy in the room, right? Thank you for being here. We like you. We don't want to piss you off. All right. So as we go through security discovery, we want to make sure we're covering all your compliance requirements, but also the managed service provider, AMS's security and compliance requirements, because they need to map. So there's a mapping that has to happen between the two. Change management, asset management, all the different things related to security. Manage endpoint security, which they use, I believe it's Trend Micro, right, that they use in AMS. So we want to make sure that you are covered end to end with that solution. Make sure your AMIs, or I said AMI. Anyone hear that? Okay, that's how you pronounce it. It's not, you could say AMI sometimes, but it's AMI. It's a big Twitter thing right now, okay?
I agree, it's AMI.
I know, it's on the twits. I said it. Someone hashtag that. All right. Anyway, you need to make sure that your machine images are created and they're keeping refreshed, and that somebody is assigned to do that, either on your team or on the AMS team, right? That exchange has to happen. And then last but not least, your network discovery. So understanding ports in and out, basics, right? External traffic requirements. Hey, are you hosting a website, or are you hosting an internal finance system? Right? Big deal, big difference here. VPC peering to make sure you have access off-site and on-site. Availability zones, your public and private subnets, all that beautiful stuff needs to occur before we decide to move you anywhere. All right, next area is actually automating that migrating. So that actually is the easier part once we know all those requirements. And I say it's easier because Rich over here just gave me evil eye. He's the one who did it. The last client we helped automate. He is definitely giving evil eye, right, David? All right, automation. So there's these things called stacks on AMS. It's the way that they structure the infrastructure. It's pretty much a pre-written infrastructure that they'll deploy anytime you need it. Well, you have to create that, right? It's a CFT, it's a few different automated properties. You create those stacks so that your team is not deploying, willy-nilly, like cowboys, I guess you could say. They're not out there deploying whatever the heck they want. They're out there deploying the compliant environment that you decided is good, but it still enables them to do it quickly, right? Otherwise, the promise of cloud is not there. So RFC automation. Anyone in the audience, other than the guys in the front row here, know what RFC stands for? I like that guy. What does it stand for? Request for change. He must work for AMS, no? No, I like that. That's awesome. So RFC is a request for change, a very basic thing. That's how you request changes through your managed service provider, AMS. And in order to get that done, yeah, you might have to fill out a form. Is that automated, guys, filling out a form? No, I don't like it. All right, so what I prefer you do is, hey, you have a system, an alert comes in, that request for change automates through, and it alerts the team on the AMS side to do something, right? All that automation can be done up front. This way your team is not actually doing IT ops, right? We want to up-level their role. We don't want them doing the IT operations for cloud. So request for change automation needs to occur, integrating with your ITSM tools. One of the ITSM tools could be Sherwell, it could be ServiceNow. Make sure that you're integrating with those tools. Here's another thing, and I'm going to go through it a little later, but integrate with AWS Marketplace. If you're a software vendor, ISV, and you are implementing your software as SaaS, or in any model, but you're selling it through Marketplace, you'll want to automate with the system so that a request for change goes through automatically and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go through it later, though, because I've got beautiful slides that we put together. And integration with your CI/CD pipeline. If you don't have a CI/CD pipeline, you might need one or something basic to go into place so that things get a little bit more automated and you're not waiting days for things to get deployed. Config management, infrastructure as code. We talked about all those Terraform people. There were about 5 of them in here. How many are you using Terraform today? There's still only 5. OK, I'm very nervous. Nobody downloaded anything in the meantime? Oh, speaking of downloads, a lot of this info that's right here on the slides are at this QR code. Everyone, phones up. Take picture. Come on, do. No? I see one in the back. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. We didn't want to hand out like data sheets and stuff because no one likes glossies anymore. Anyone old enough to know what a glossy is? All right, thanks, man, in the back. Appreciate it. I am old enough to know what a glossy is. We have our glossy online, if anyone would like it. And it's not ours. The end result is to kind of give you this information of what you could consider before moving to a managed service and what that process is. Migration. This is the easiest part. I'm saying that right now, and Rich just literally fell over. But it is the easiest part at the end. Once you get all the information, you understand what's happening, you have to go and deploy those stacks. You institute requests for change. You deploy the stack. All of that stuff could be automated if you get your requirements done up front. Data migration is also key, right? You don't want to just throw your app over there without the data. Things could be latency could be an issue. So get that all over, and that's the end of the process. Wow, we did it, right? Did we do it?
We did it, yeah.
Oh, you guys are all cheering. Good. Okay, wait. Uh-oh. We forgot about our IT ops team and our security team and all those other people. Anyone doing DevOps? Oh, thank you. People, right? The culture change when someone else comes in to manage your infrastructure. That has to happen. I say DevOps because DevOps is a huge culture change, but it doesn't have to be DevOps. You have to consider all of these people that need to change or understand the change or explain their requirements along the way. So integrating your operations team is essential when you decide to go to a managed service provider. Your IT team. Make sure security or InfoSec, that one guy in the back over there, where are you? Raise your hand again. He left. But see what happens with security guys? No, he's on his phone. All right. And headphones too, man? Oh. All right, IT operations, your help desk. Let them know what they need to do to get in touch with the managed service provider should a client call and say something is wrong. You don't want your customers on the phone and then your help desk say, well, that's managed by a third party, that's terrible. We want to make sure that works, right? Customer success, make sure your customer service team knows what to say. Know your tech support, your training and education team internally and externally know what to say about this service that you're offering. Sales and finance, yeah, your sales team should know where things are hosted. I know they don't care too much, but they should know that might affect the end customer that is their customer. Finance and accounting, this is essential if you're going to deploy stuff from Marketplace through RFCs into AMS. You want to make sure that finance and accounting knows that so that they can actually account for any sales that go through that process. And sales operations as well, because they probably do most of the work there. And last but not least, product development. And guess what? As a product manager, I got to put me on the slide. Tell product management you're moving their cheese, please. All right, your marketing team. By the way, software engineering definitely should know, especially since their app is now running in another environment. And QA. And by the way, if you're doing the DevOps, where is QA? They're in software engineering. So I hate that we had to separate that out, but we don't do the DevOps on the slide. All right, so I have a use case for you of why a client of AWS went to AMS. They actually were hosted on AWS inherently. They had, and this is actually Cherwell Software as an example. They are here at reInvent. They actually are walking around. I hope some of them are in the room. And they're doing a video based on what they did. I'm really impressed with how they went about this process. What they identified initially was, it was really clear. They had a new SaaS product, and they didn't have an easy way to predict the cost of operating that SaaS offering. Right? This is a software problem, guys. I'm a software product manager in my past life for almost 20 years. Yeah, that's why I know what a glossy is, in case anyone's wondering. So the challenge with software product managers and so on is that when we had box software, and yes, I did sell box software on a CD, not even a DVD, guys. When we had that, the process of providing that software to a client was very simple. We had to write the DVDs, right, or CDs, and then it would go out into the stores, and we didn't get to upgrade for like 7 months. You know, it was okay. And now we're in SaaS. Clients expect upgrades, security holes, all that beautiful stuff. We own that now. Now we need to know how to operate our stuff. Oh, by the way, you also need to know how to operate your infrastructure underneath it. Do you have time for that? You should be focused on your application. So the challenge they saw is, one, unpredictable cost of the SaaS operations. So just understanding that they had those layers that they had to cover now. Second, skills gap. Their SaaS operations team was the same team as their IT ops team, as is with many new software vendors going to cloud, right? And not a new software vendor, but a software vendor that's been around for a while and then moved to cloud, right? They had sysadmins who've been doing sysadmin-y things for a long time, right? That's a term that's in a dictionary, I promise. They don't know even what an SRE is, right? It's a site reliability engineer, and that's essential for this new change of mind. So they had a skills gap there. They needed to focus on their application, and now they're focusing on infrastructure. And oh, by the way, there's 2 other areas, and it doesn't relate to the technology side. It relates to actually fulfilling the product to the customer. It's slightly technology, but their automation is there, and they're doing it on-prem or they're doing it in the cloud, and they actually have to keep updating that automation anytime something happens. They had to make sure that ordering process, when the client orders something or decommissions something or goes somewhere else, they need to automate that as well. And they have to manage that ongoing. And last but not least, billing. Yeah, I know, billing, right? Billing's cool. The client's now getting billed instead of once a year or once every 3 years. Anyone do software contracts for 3 years? Yay, the guy in the back. I like you, we should talk after. We pretty much had the same history, but the software contract for 3 years no longer exists, so now the billing and finance team is like, what? What do we do? I don't know how to do this. All right, that's the problem. Everyone got the problem? Yeah. Woo! I love it. Thank you. All right, we're working on entertaining the crowd here, right? You got that, Chris?
I'm learning.
Okay, good. All right, so here's the solution. SaaS Ops aligns to the client cost of goods sold. Because you can predict your cost of managing cloud infrastructure through AMS, you can now align it to your cost of what you're selling. Oh, novel concept. We have a P&L. Everyone know what a P&L is? A profit and loss, guys. It's like finance guys do that all the time. And so do product managers. Okay, so SaaS Ops is outsourced to the managed service provider, AWS Managed Services. Now the ISV can clearly predict and measure that cost per customer. That's pretty awesome. Now they can actually measure the value per customer as well. These are all the things that we talk about in the new age of cloud that we all promised and never actually delivered on, right? Highly trained cloud operations team. You don't have to figure out how to run all of this stuff. Let your team run your application. Okay, stack up the stack, please, and leave the rest to the experts at AWS. Fulfillment time and cost. Now, this is the cool thing that Rich did, so I can get like, Rich, stand up, man. Come on. No, I'm not talking. I won't embarrass you too much, Rich, but he actually automated the order processing from AWS Marketplace for this SaaS vendor, right? All the way through to the order processing system in the SaaS vendor's environment, their Salesforce integration, their CRM system, and then back through AMS to deploy the instances. That's pretty cool, right? So that stuff can be automated and your team doesn't have to touch it. And last but not least, billing. Now AWS can do your billing for you because the client ordered through the marketplace. Guys, we just took all those problems away. I'm really excited about it. I wish I was back in software. Almost. I work for Chris. He's really awesome. I don't want to leave. All right. This is a little more on the solution or the use case that we're talking about. By the way, it was brought to us, hey, client had this great idea. Sherwell Software had the great idea. They're like, dudes, we don't want to do all this work. Can you automate it all for us? And that's what we did. We went through and we did the full application discovery. We did the strategy integrating with AMS operations. Because again, they already had an ops team, so they couldn't just say, hey, we're going to just move it over there and just close our eyes and expect it to work. So we actually had to make sure those teams were working together, and it's more of a people change than a process change there. Making sure you document those procedures, right, because of compliance needs. Making sure that you analyze the need for any DR or HA, especially with the SaaS offering. You want to make sure that that is done right. You don't want it going down and then all your clients calling your customer support. We never had that problem with CDs. Just providing a full RACI requirements matrix, right? So responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. I got that right? So making sure who is responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed based on different scenarios. Delivering that AMS landing zone integration, building the CloudFormation templates. This is the easy stuff. I just leave it over here to this guy who's laughing at me. And then developing that migration strategy and the schedules for migration. If you're migrating more than one application, you want to make sure that that schedule works for your team. You don't want to do it when you're going to do a major upgrade. It's a bad idea, just saying, Maybe do it later or before, all that stuff. Automating that integration with the marketplace was a big haul, but it definitely was essential for this client. They wanted to make sure that they didn't have to do the billing, they didn't have to do the provisioning manually. All of that worked when the client clicked sign up. And that's kind of cool, right? And then last but not least, automating some basic stuff like, hey, by the way, anytime the client has a new person onboarded that needed to stay onboarded for maybe an 8-hour time frame, getting them access, right? Okay, let's go into some diagrams. These are eye charts. I'm going to make it known right now. Richard Nason built this beauty. He did. Everyone got that? He did. So this is an example. I'm not going to walk you through detail, but this is an example of a process that you would walk through in order to automate. So all of the little steps in between, the lambdas that are built, the automation of an email going to a customer, all of that can be done upfront so that none of the work is done by your team, right? Especially since you're offboarding this onto a managed service provider. You don't want that work on your team. You want your team working on what? Operating your app. Got it? Say it, everyone. Operating your app. Good stuff. I like that. Oh, we zoomed in. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit on this and explain what we're talking about here. Here's an example process flow, and it's got lots of detail. Don't worry, the slides will be up there. Someone promised that, I think. But the end result is, or the beginning result is the client found the product in the AWS Marketplace, and there's a lot of automation that falls through. We want to make sure we're triggering we identify if the client is already existing. We want to make sure we're updating their subscription. We want to make sure that, hey, if they're expired, we charge them. Oh, basic stuff, right? But none of that is automated inherently. You have to make sure that that works. We want to make sure that we register the client into the shareable software specifically, into their environment, right? They have their own customer service templates and so on. We also want to make sure at the bottom end of this that once the subscription is fulfilled, the client knows that it's fulfilled. Just basics, guys, but none of this stuff can happen without the automation in place, right? And you don't want hand-holding here. You don't want a phone call or a Slack message even to say, oh, client signed up, now do the thing, right? You want it to automatically go into your systems so that lift is off of your team. Here's another beautiful eye chart, a beautiful chart that Rich put together for a specific client. And in this situation is if their end customer, right, their end customer, end user of this solution wanted to buy their software off of their website, that can happen too, and it can be fulfilled through the same model, right? So this is a workflow there. Examples here are, hey, they went to a registration page on the ISV's website. Then it triggered the login to the AWS Marketplace. And then it triggered a message to be sent programmatically to these back-end systems like Salesforce. And Live CRM, I think, is this tool that they were using, but any CRM tool that they were using. This is done through, again, automation, a few different Lambdas that he just, popped out when he wanted to, right? Rich, that was all that it was very simple. End result is, this beauty can be automated fully, and alerting can be done so that your team knows if any of this automation breaks. Because I know Rich is perfect, but systems are not, right? And sometimes they break. So we want to make sure that automation also does some monitoring is put on top of this, and that the end customer gets what they need in the end, right? And the end customer at the end here, a CFT is deployed, and they get their software email that says, here, log in right now, and you can use the software that was deployed. The cool thing about this offering, guys, and what I wanted to call out here, and I know I gave an ISV use case, so if you're not part of a software company right now, it might be a little far-fetched, but the key point here is that the software company inherently is focused on delivering software to client, or rather delivering features to client, right? Software that solves a problem. They don't want to deal with hosting it, managing, and all that beautiful stuff because it's not their distinctive competence, especially the older software companies that have been around the block for a while. So it's really helpful when that infrastructure management is done by someone else. Hence cloud, hence AWS. All right, I did zoom in a little bit for the license entitlement, but I won't bore you with that. Instead, I will be here for questions. Come on up, Chris.
I'm here.
Anyone have audience questions now that want to stand up and ask or maybe embarrass me? Joey Brown in the back? Anyone?
Hey, Stefano, maybe one question is, has anybody in the audience actually tried to launch AMS? Is anybody?
There's one guy. Okay, two. Oh, that's why you know what an RFC is.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a couple of mics, actually.
That's good. Awesome. Come up to the mic and.
I'm sorry to give a testimony, but we have a FDA-compliant use case that our MSP would not support. So we went to AMS. They referred us to SecondWatch. Internally with the MSP, it would cost it was 7 figures to support it. Okay. With AMS, it was about 100K initial onboarding through SecondWatch, and then about $32,000 a year based on our infrastructure spend. So this is a really, really awesome use case. I cannot
Thank you. Wow, I don't know this guy,
give
but I
a
should.
better testimony to these guys.
Give that guy a T-shirt.
I know, right?
You want mine?
Take your shirt off, man.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I mean, price it out. That's
Yeah.
all I'm telling you.
We're underpriced. I'm just
Yeah,
letting you know.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I think the point is really good. I mean, it is an extremely compelling offering for, maybe not for every situation, but for those that are looking for ways to build in the level of rigor, the best practices, and the patterns that they need from a managed service, and don't want to have, super highly customized, maybe a racy approach to all of the different moving parts within your business process or infrastructure. I think it's a super compelling offering.
Definitely.
So.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you there. We actually already did our CloudFormation templates. They did nothing for us.
What?
From that perspective. We actually already had it organized way ahead of time. I mean, we've done this in our own account on AWS, but it really was a value to have them go through it and onboard it for us. And again, I would just encourage you guys to price it out.
Price it out.
Great.
He's saying that we were underpriced.
Yeah.
No. That's great. Thank you for that insight. And I definitely think we should get him at least a shirt, right? The check's in the back. Any other questions? Did I keep you awake after lunch? That's a good question to ask, right? That was my goal. I know that now you can go to sleep in whatever session you have to go to next, but I hope this was useful for all of you. If you do have questions, Chris and I will be here.
I have a
Stefani
question.
got one over there.
Oh, there is. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
So AMS, do they abstract access for the customer data, or they have no access to customer data?
They don't have access to customer data.
Okay.
Yes.
Do they, on the infrastructure, despite the lack of access data, do they have, like for regulated industries, US-based support only, if you have that as a requirement?
I don't think that they have a regulated industry support. He's going to answer your question as well, because I believe they had a specific.
I'm sorry, we had a very specific use case
Yes.
around medical, and they supported it. We had an FDA requirement. They said, okay, we'll take a look at it. AMS went, and 6 weeks later, they were FDA compliant.
Yeah.
They are GDPR compliant, and my understanding is AMS, if you have a requirement, they will fill it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much why the discoveries can take a little longer, because if we find those requirements are so important, AMS changes for the need, right? And they're really helpful in getting that done. I think Rich has worked through that with a few of the clients that we worked with. Thanks for the question. That was a good one. All right, guys. So again, get the data sheet, the glossy, all right? And then the second thing is, if you have questions for Chris or I, we'll be here at the end of the session, but we're also in booth 2013, right by the VMware booth. They're kind of blocking our sign, so look for us. All right, it's nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.